Hey everybody, and welcome back to Teal House Farm. I was just sitting here, kind of in my pajamas, but oh well, getting ready. I was planning out things that I want to can this fall, because fall, it can go really quickly and there can be just a lot to do. And anyway, I thought maybe I'd share with you what I have on my canning list coming up for probably about the next 6 weeks. And then maybe you guys might have some things you're planning on canning and can share some ideas below of things you're looking forward to canning. Now, I've already closed up the garden for the year. It's kind of early for that for us. This gardening year was a little bit different. It actually was really bountiful. We had great spring and summer weather, and fall has been absolutely dry. So what I decided to do was just to close it up instead of try a fall planting when it's a drought. And we got so much in spring and summer, I was really happy with everything. So that means that I don't really have the bounty of just green tomatoes and things that I usually am pulling out of the garden right before the first frost. That stuff has already been done. The garden is just done. There's nothing else out there. So we have just some other things on our list to do. All of the things below, if we have a video of them from years prior, I will link that video in case you don't want to wait for our next video to come out from when I actually can it with the updated recipes. You can get started right away. But all of these I will be posting content for too, so if you like and follow, you'll be getting the recipes coming up. Some of them we have videos for, some of them we don't, so it'll kind of depend. But anyway, let's just jump right in and let's talk about what's coming up on my canning list for fall to get us ready for winter. So there are 8 things total on my list, and the first 2 kind of go together because it comes from a desire to not produce any waste, and that is what I call scrap sauce, which is what I make after I can tomato juice. These are my final 2 jars from last year, and I'm actually going to be using the tomato juice tomorrow for dinner, and I'm sure the kids will have some sort of spaghetti this week, and then this will be gone. So it is definitely time to can some more. So when you can tomato juice, by the way, when you home can tomato juice, it is totally normal for it to separate like this. There's a technique that you can do where it'll prevent separation, but the USDA mentions that, if it separates, it's still perfectly fine. You just shake it up before you use it. And it's really it's a cosmetic issue, not a safety issue. But when you can tomato juice, you end up with a lot of tomato pulp and seeds. And typically when you make sauce, you just want the best part of the tomato. You want a really nice, smooth spaghetti sauce. And so using the pulp left over from making tomato juice is usually, I'm not going to say frowned on, because it's not that it's not safe. It's just not the preferred smoothest of the sauce. So what I make is what I call scrap sauce. And you'll notice that this has a little bit of a orangey or greenish or tint. And that's because to the tomato pulp left over from the tomato juice, I add some zucchini or yellow squash from the garden, and I roast it all together and blend it together. Sometimes I add a little Hamburger if I want a meat sauce. And while it gives a little bit of a different color, it adds smoothness back to the texture of the tomato pulp that's left over. So you can still get kind of a smooth sauce like you're used to from the store without wasting any parts of the tomato that are left over from making the juice. It's also nice because it's another way to kind of sneak vegetables into your kids' diet. You could hide quite a few vegetables in here. As long as the majority of it is the tomato pulp, it should still be safe to pressure can. You don't want a true vegetable puree without the majority of it being tomato pulp, because the acidity of the tomatoes is one of the things that helps make it safe to can in a home pressure can. And also because the tomatoes are not quite as thick, so you make sure that the heat and the pressure is getting all the way through your jar. Those types of things. Okay, next, I do not have a jar to show you because we ate the last one last week, and that is smoky bacon and jalapeno stew / chili. I guess it's more of a chili. It is one of our favorite soups / stews for winter. It is so hearty and thick, and it just has wonderful flavor with a little bit of a kick. We love it with just a little bit of sour cream mixed in. This one is not technically USDA approved, so I always mention that up front. Almost everything we can here is not what they call rebel canning. I like to follow the rules. This one's a little different because it has bacon ends in it, and technically the USDA does not recommend canning bacon because it has been cured. However, this recipe uses just a little bit of bacon ends, just very few, to add flavoring, and so I'm really not worried about it. But I always mention that up front because some people just are not comfortable with any type of rebel canning, which I totally respect. Some people are on the other end of the spectrum and can absolutely everything and anything. You choose where your safety lies, but I always like to be clear if something follows approved guidelines or if it doesn't. The smoky bacon and jalapeno chili doesn't. because it does include those bacon ends. Now I think, and I could be wrong on this, but I think if you go to a butcher, I think you can request uncured ends that would be made into bacon ends, but they're not going to be nearly as salty. So you'll need to adjust your recipe accordingly with salt, because what makes this chili so good are those bacon ends are so salty and have a little bit of a smoky flavor. It just permeates through the whole jar, and it's just delicious. Next up on the list are just plain old-fashioned chili beans. I just get dry beans from the store. They're really cheap, right? Like $1 a bag still. Even with inflation, a bag of dry beans is still about $1, even less than $1, depending where you are. And I add my own chili spice mixture, and I can those so that when we have chili through the winter, I already have pre-spiced chili beans. And so I don't have to sit over the stove adding spices and getting my chili just right. It's a can of tomatoes, a can of chili beans, a pound of beef, dump it in a pot, warm it up. It's really fast, makes a really fast meal. Canning beans is something that I have been doing more and more around here as inflation has caused meat to get more and more expensive. We've been eating a lot more beans. And beans are really easy to can. I always get comments as people say, why do you bother canning dry beans? Just use your Instapot to make beans. And my answer is always, I can make dry beans into ready to go beans in I think it's 20 minutes in the Instapot, but that's 20 minutes. If I've already done the canning, it's 0 minutes from the canner, which is amazing, which is why I can them and keep them on the shelf, because you can literally dump and go for whatever it is that you're making. You don't have to get the Instapot out and cook them. After the chili beans, we're going to make some more lemon curd. Now, this is a jar that got past me last year. So lemon curd, you really need to eat within the first 6 months. It's not a safety rule, it's a texture rule. And you probably can't tell on this video, maybe you can. You can tell it looks a little grainy. If lemon curd sits on the shelf, it can get a granulated texture, which you want a smooth, buttery lemon butter, sometimes is what it's called in lemon curd. And so this one's been on the shelf too long. I'm actually going to try putting this in the microwave when I open it and see if that smooths it back out, but you're probably gonna have to all use it all the first try. But I make the lemon curd / lemon butter specifically for my dad to send to him because he loves this stuff. And it's probably one of the more difficult canning recipes I have. And it's just because it takes really exact measurements and a lot of patience, but it's really good. And this year, on top of the lemon curd, I'm also going to try making lime curd, because the recipe is exactly the same. You just swap out your lemons for limes. But this is really good on a toasted English muffin, or it's really good if you make danishes, to be the center part of your breakfast pastry. Just amazing flavor, but it does take a little bit of patience and time to put together. And it makes a great Christmas gift, but like I said, don't make it too far in advance because you really need to use it up within 6 months for best quality. Next up, I'm also out of this, which is beef and vegetable soup. And I made this last year with my friend Adrienne, and it was delicious. This was a really basic recipe she found in one of her canning books. I think it was an old ball canning book, and it looked so simple, but it was one of my favorite soups to open this year for lunch. I canned it all in pint jars, which was just right for me. So I would make the kids whatever kids were going to eat for lunch, peanut butter sandwiches or whatever. But I don't want that. And then I would open up the beef and vegetable soup, and it was just warm and hearty and filling and just really good. And so we're going to make more this year, except this year I will probably be making it with our lamb that we've grown. I have a few cuts of lamb that I need to use up, because we're getting ready to process our new lambs, and so we're going to clear out that freezer space and use up our old lamb. But lamb and beef is pretty interchangeable. There's just a slight difference in the flavor, but as far as how you use it, basically exactly the same. So you can definitely follow along with that recipe. If beef wasn't so expensive, I would probably go buy beef and just do that and find another use for the lamb. But right now, lamb seems to be the way to go. It's free, it's in my freezer. All right, we've got 2 things left. We're going to can Hamburger stew. I have 1 jar left of this, and last year I think I made 20 quarts and 30 pints of this. That's how often we eat this. This is basically beef. It's got carrots, onions, potatoes. It's got tomato juice. It's a very simple recipe, but it is delicious, and it's versatile. So you can eat it just like this, warm it up and eat it like a soup, or you can warm it up and add noodles and cheese, and it becomes a single dish dinner because it's a goulash. And so sometimes I eat it just as a soup for lunch. Sometimes I'll open several jars and throw in a whole bunch of noodles and cheese, and then it's goulash that everybody eats, and it's just a one dish meal. So it gets used a lot because it can be a couple different things. And the last thing that I'm planning on canning soon is pumpkin, because Halloween is just around the corner, and what always happens after Halloween is that friends will have pumpkins, and they're gonna just toss them out, because to a normal person after Halloween or into November, the pumpkin's just kind of annoying and you're ready to decorate for Christmas, but pumpkins are edible. And so every late fall, I will can free pumpkins that I get from people or that I have left over from our decorations from the fall. And then I'll use them in August, September, October of the next year for when it is pumpkin spice season. And I make everything from pumpkin soup. My kids love pumpkin muffins. They're great. Pumpkin pie. You can make, I make apple pumpkin, like cobbler bars. I just use them a lot. So they do sit on the shelf for a while, because usually by the time I'm canning them, I'm over pumpkin, and I don't really want pumpkin in the spring. It just doesn't seem right. But then the next fall, we really tear through those jars. Now, something that I'm not planning on doing right now, because I have a lot from our own garden this year, but something to keep your eye out for is around Thanksgiving time, there will be a lot of potatoes and carrots that are really good deals. And watch out for those, especially right after Thanksgiving, because you could get a whole lot of potatoes for really cheap and can them. And I always keep lots of potatoes in my pantry. We grew potatoes this year, we grew carrots this year, and I did canning of them. My pantry is already pretty full of potatoes and carrots, so I may not be doing that this year. I say that, but I might just find a deal I can't pass up. But those are two other things that are really easy to can, and just watch out for those deals, because grocery stores will be ready to offload those potatoes to get you to come into their store to buy their overpriced turkey, and you can really get a good deal. So anyway, I'd love to hear what you guys are canning. This is busy canning season for us. And then it's a little bit of a lull in canning in the winter. So I'd love to hear what you guys are up to. Always interested in trying things that are new. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys again real soon.